And I see technology leveling the playing field for all learners. Education is a jump-off point into life, employability, and he ate his lunch facing the wall.
And no one was there to help him. We're joined today by Kim Blanchard.
As Group Head of Digital Education Development and AI, creating digital assets for students to have an engaging learner experience.
Where do you think the school system needs to change to become better?
Oh, very emotive topic.
What's your hope for the future of education? Hello and welcome to today's episode of Think Tank. We're joined today by Activate Learning's Kim Blanchard, and we're going to be talking today about the role of AI in education. Okay, well, welcome to Think Tank, Kim. How are you? Good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you, Paul, for inviting me.
Well, you're very, very welcome, and it's an absolute pleasure. Now, tell me what your role is. You're in charge of lots of things at Activate Learning.
I am. So as Group Head of Digital Education Development and AI, I have a team that supports colleges across 3 counties with creating digital assets for students to have an engaging learner experience. We develop courses on our learning management system, so they have an end-to-end learner sequence journey, and those assets are then injected into there. We have learning designers, learning technologists, multimedia developers, and we have a very robust quality assurance process to make sure that it all works.
Brilliant. Activate Learning is one of the countries, the UK's top 5 learning providers, isn't that right?
Yes. So
And
we are a
where, so
big
your colleges are kind of spread around. From a British standpoint, the UK college system is roughly what year groups, what ages?
16 to 18 adults.
Yeah.
We also have an intake of 14 to 16. So students will come to us from schools
Yeah.
as part of their education. But we have a very broad demographic of learners. Our colleges are based in Oxfordshire,
Yeah.
the very north of Oxfordshire, Banbury and Bicester College. There's Oxford City Centre with a satellite college on the outskirts. Then we move into Berkshire and we have Reading College and Bracknell and Wokingham College, and then move into Surrey and we've got Guildford College, Farnham College and Maris Wood College.
Brilliant. And I met you a couple months ago when you very kindly, your team asked me to deliver a keynote on artificial intelligence and my take on it. And that was at the Reading campus, I believe.
It was,
And
yes.
we wound up, I went on the tour of the facility.
You did.
I was blown away. And one of the reasons that I thought, actually, I want to get Kim on this podcast is because, well, first and foremost, I was kind of just amazed at the opportunity that these young kids and young adults have got in terms of things like learning about virtual reality and artificial intelligence. The lab that I went to, where I think you showed me around and we got to see the students in action. Tell us about the virtual reality lab and what that's about.
We deliver virtual reality experiences within our technology enhanced learning spaces. So within each of our colleges, we have a learning environment that's traditional libraries. And within that, we have these technology enhanced learning spaces. So it's at the fingertips of our learners and our teaching staff. So within those, we will provide access to a variety of virtual reality headsets. We develop augmented reality assets. We have podcasting areas, art spaces, so digital art spaces, and we can collaborate via Teams rooms to each one of our respective sites. These spaces are designed to encourage teachers to bring in their students to learn in a very visual, kinesthetic way.
Yeah.
Learners really engage with those hard to grasp theoretical studies, and we work with our teaching staff to develop assets that you can't readily find on off the shelf.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Let's talk a little bit more about, firstly, what your team does, if we could get into a little bit more detail around that, and then we'll move into some of the tools that you guys have created. So firstly, let's talk about your team, right?
Yes.
You've been recently promoted group head of this whole area. What's your team like, and what do you guys work on day to day?
Oh, day to day, we train staff on how to use digital tools.
Okay.
We're very much about digital inclusion.
How many staff would you have across all of Activate Learning, do
Oh,
you think?
golly, I've got 13 staff
Okay.
across within my team.
Within your team, but in
Yes,
terms of the staff that you're trying to help train and sort of get them, I guess, up and ready for
we have around 2,500 staff.
2,500.
Yes,
Wow. So you're supporting them with digital education tools.
absolutely.
Is that
Yeah.
right?
So we have a strategic objective last year that we've carried forward as business as usual this year, which was to develop the knowledge skills, the digital knowledge skills and mindset of our staff.
Okay.
So to do that, we need to ensure that they have the foundation, the building blocks
Mm,
in order to cascade and inject digital opportunities within the curriculum.
okay. And so what does your team do to help support them then specifically? What do they do?
Oh, a wealth of things. So we'll provide face-to-face training. We have 3 weekly sessions of dedicated training opportunity. We have digital drop-in sessions for staff to just drop in and ask questions. They can book any sort of training, bespoke training that they've identified. We have this knowledge gap that we want to fill, but also we develop asynchronous resource. So we've coined 60-second skills,
Okay. What's
and
that?
they are 60-second videos
Okay.
of how to do one particular thing.
Ah, okay.
So if you don't know how to set up bookings on Outlook, for instance,
Right.
we've got a 60-second skill on how to do that. If you don't know, if somebody's struggling with how to set up a Turnitin assignment on our learning management system, we have a 60-second skill for that.
Okay.
So everybody's short of time, right?
Yeah.
They really struggle for time to spend an hour in a classroom and learn as a teacher.
Yeah.
So we thought that if we provided these golden nuggets for our staff, then whilst they're making a coffee or whilst they're stepping away, rethinking, oh, I've got that next.
Yeah.
60 seconds, they can get that in the bag. They can secure their knowledge and then pass that on to their learners.
Excellent. Excellent stuff. I'm going to refer to my notes here because you guys have been shortlisted for the best use of AI in learning at this year's Learning Awards. The winners will be announced in February 2025, but to be a finalist, how's that feel?
It feels absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
It's great recognition. We are the only FE college on the shortlist,
Yeah.
and so we're competing with companies that are developing tools for their staff.
And FE is further education for
It
those.
is, yes, sorry,
That's
yes,
okay.
it is
Yeah.
further education.
Yeah, great. And so let's talk about some of the tools that you and your teams have kind of come up with. There's three that I know of. You've got the Activate Learning Intelligent Assistant. You've
Yes,
got AI tutors for English and maths. Is that right?
yes,
And then you've got the AI feedback tutor. Is that correct?
we have.
Brilliant.
We
So,
have
I
indeed.
mean, was the first one, the intelligent assistant, was that the first one that you created?
No, it was on the board to
Okay.
develop, but the first tools that we started to create was the maths and English
Oh, great.
um,
Okay.
tutors. So we identified a need. We have a very good program of GCSE online courses, and we have upwards of 3,000 students that
Hmm.
take part in that. Our learners that learn online and remotely
Mm,
are non-traditional learners. They will be learning after work,
okay.
perhaps taking part in their studies sort of late into the evening. They're managing around families.
Right.
So they will have one tutor delivered session that's timetabled, and outside of that, if they've got any problems with any of the problem solving that they need to learn through maths,
Yeah.
then what's available to them, because everybody's working 9 till 5.
Yeah.
So it meant that staff needed to stay late in order to be available to provide that support. So in order to support those learners, we developed our own maths and English tutors.
Yeah.
So each learner gets a personalised approach.
Okay.
They're coached. They're not taken to an answer.
Right.
They are coached to problem solve. So as they click into the question that they're struggling to answer on our learning management system, they press the AI tutor icon.
Right.
The tutor lifts the problem and pops it into an AI interface, and then asks the student, "How can I help you?"
Yeah.
And then it takes them through the coached process to work out the problem.
That's really incredible. And I think it's a kind of a theme that I wanted to kind of jump into, which is I mean, we are talking about the role of AI in education.
Yes,
And I think that one of many themes in this area that you could talk about is how do we continue to ensure that learners are actually learning rather than just simply getting an answer to something, which AI can also help us do, right? So
absolutely.
AI can help us find the answer to something very sharpish, very quickly, and also at the same time, it can help us become or develop ourselves or become something that we weren't through tutoring or through coaching towards us finding the answer to what we need ourselves.
Yes.
Is that how do you strike that balance in developing these tools?
Well, we have a very robust learning philosophy
Mhm.
that we apply within Activate Learning. So we're centered around the brain, motivation, and emotions. And so through that, having that growth mindset, it would be very easy to give somebody the answer,
Yeah,
but nobody learns from that. They
right.
don't learn how to break down the problem
Yeah.
and solve it in its component parts.
Okay.
And so we designed our tool in order to do that. So we chunk the problems and take people on that journey, and we're very respectful of how I say respectful. That's an emotion that we've built. Is it's the way that we expect our tutor to respond
Yeah.
to our learners, um, that they have a non-biased, non-judgmental approach to that coaching
Yeah.
model that they have.
I'm glad you mentioned that. I was going to pick up on that
Mm.
subject. How does Activate actually ensure that that coaching is non-biased and non-judgmental?
It's the language models that we've built in. So we use Microsoft Azure
Okay.
and OpenAI as part of that.
Yeah.
Um, and then through the coaching, all the training that we've given the tool, we make sure that there are rules.
Okay.
So we've written the rules
Yeah.
into the the programming of the AI.
And can you give me a specific example by any chance of like how the language might be written in a way that is seen to be without bias?
Okay, so if the student is demanding, tell me the answer.
Yeah.
For instance,
Yeah.
um, you're stupid. I'm really frustrated. I'm angry. Tell me the answer.
Right.
The tool will respond politely
Right.
and say, and direct the student to the tutor. We
Okay.
don't accept that language.
Right.
We coach the right way to approach and refer the student on. If you're finding this process too complex,
Yeah.
we would speak to your tutor.
Really interesting subject. Can, let's see the did we cover the AI feedback tutor?
We haven't, no.
Yeah, so tell me about the AI feedback tutor then. What's that tool for?
The AI feedback tutor is something that's come out of the GCSE feedback tutor, so the support that students can have for their GCSE initially. Um, we developed that based on the creative writing that students are asked to do as part of their initial assessment when they enter college. So paper 1, question 5 of the AQA exam is all about that creative writing. And we were able to take all of the training resources and exemplars from the awarding body website, plug that into our tool, train the tool so that when the student entered their answer to the question, then it would assess it against known criteria
Right.
and then give them feedback about where they needed to improve
Yeah.
their writing to increase their mark.
Okay.
So the students have that as a GCSE. Then we took that a step further, so that would help the tutor provide feedback.
Yeah.
So the feedback tutor then will suggest areas of feedback for the learner from the teacher
Okay.
that the teacher has full control over.
Right.
So that the teacher can edit that response as they see fit.
Okay.
It isn't AI replacing the teacher.
Sure.
It's AI supporting the teacher
Yeah.
in order to give feedback and then subsequently mark the student's work.
What's the sort of the teacher response to that then? You know, kind of almost having for lack of a, I mean, the word co-pilot's kind of bandied about and stuff, but I mean, it is actually kind of like like having a side version of yourself almost to sort of help you with this.
It is. It is. The teachers have responded really well.
Yeah.
Those that have engaged in the pilots that we had initially reported back that it saved them 65% of their time
Oh, wow.
for
Okay.
marking, which is quite significant. We've extended the pilot across the whole organisation,
Yeah.
and we've launched a generalised feedback tutor, so
Okay.
that based on the specifications that we've trained the tutor on, for all staff to have support with marking,
Okay.
regardless of topic.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Would you like to hear some testimonials?
Go on,
I've
Terry.
got some testimonials. This is some feedback from your staff. Okay.
Okay.
About the Activate Learning Intelligent Assistant. One says, I really like the way, do you call it Alia?
Alia,
Yeah.
yes.
I really like the way Alia plans the scheme of learning based on our Activate learning cycle, which uses neuroscience principles.
Yes.
Another one, absolutely love this. So simple to use and a great time saver. I created some very useful resources for my students to aid them in their exam revision in a fraction of the time it would have taken me pulling them directly from another company.
Awesome.
I asked for it to produce some training around professional boundaries and another one around appropriate touch. CPD will never be the same again. Really impressed with the answer. It is just generated for me, celebrating digital apprenticeships at Activate Learning. These are from learners themselves. So that was the staff, and this is some feedback from the actual learners. It helped me improve in English. The teacher showed us how to use the AI tool to improve my writing. Another person said, it's pushing you to think about the answer, which I thought was really, really good. Another one said, it broke it down bit by bit. I imagine this is a problem.
Yes.
It broke down the problem bit by bit and allowed me to think about what to do next, which was really, really interesting. The fact it doesn't give you answers, I find very helpful, is another comment from one of your learners. And then finally, I think the AI tutor encourages you by gently reminding you of the methods needed to solve an issue by yourself, as opposed to just answering the question for you. And I think that's ultimately what you're trying to achieve, right?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, that's great feedback.
Yeah, do you like that?
I do.
Yeah.
I do. That's wonderful.
Yeah, so, and I guess that kind of gives you a really good sense of like ultimately what your mission is, right?
It does. It does. Absolutely.
How would you judge yourself in terms of the team? Like, what is it you're hoping to kind of achieve as a team? Let's put it this way. What's next for your team?
I think
Given that kind of success.
I think to continue to do to support our learners. I mean, Activate Learning is a fully inclusive college, and we have a fantastic high needs provision.
Yeah.
But we see that technology levels that playing field for those people that are coming in to do our GCSEs. They're people that are returning to education.
Yeah.
So they have lots of complex needs. They can feel very insecure, have low self-esteem. And by coaching through a tool
Yeah.
and providing that the non-judgmental, unbiased growth mindset experience,
Mm.
they re-engage with education in a more meaningful way.
Yeah.
It starts to build confidence, and it's amazing that we can use AI, to invoke an emotional response
Yeah.
and to motivate people to want to learn more. And I see technology leveling the playing field for all learners,
Yeah.
and to ensure that they can access their full potential.
Yeah.
That's the bit. For me, that's why I get up in the morning. That's why we do what we do within Activate Learning, because we can make a difference to a learner, to take them on their journey.
Yeah.
They start, education is their jump off points. Further education is a jump off point into life, employability, or into higher education.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And to give those skills
Yeah.
and to build that confidence. That's what it's all about, really.
That's fantastic. When we speak specifically about the role of AI in education, it's a funny one, isn't it? I personally, I love the idea of constant learning.
Yes.
I'm kind of I'm never really comfortable stopping and not continuing my learning journey. So I see learning as something that just never really kind of fit the classic education model that I went through.
No.
And I was very lucky. I mean, I was pushed hard. I had really supportive parents, and they pushed me very much. I went into a really good university in America, and kind of, you know, got out of it alive. And yeah, I kind of have got that classical education sort of background, but actually it doesn't really serve me that well, in a modern world. And actually, what I find is really important is that you're constantly learning
Yeah.
and you're constantly evolving.
Mm.
Um, how do you think the education providers of the future will need to respond to that need to constantly learn, if it's in fact a need?
That's a really interesting question, and one that I will respond to personally, without my Activate Learning head on.
Yeah,
I think we need to rethink what we're teaching our learners.
yeah,
When you have tools like AI that are going to be part and parcel of our futures and will do parts of jobs for us,
yeah,
we need to think more about what are the skills that we need our learners to learn now
yeah,
so that they can be impactful going forward. The world of work is forever changing.
hmm,
There are jobs that we're deliv- delivering courses on now that might not exist in 5, 10 years' time.
yeah.
So we need to be more future thinking, um, and and consider, in my opinion, what it is that we want education to provide.
What do you think we do need to provide? I mean, so is it a skill set? Is it an actual sort of skill that we need to teach, or is it a sort of a quality that we need to pass on?
I think for me it's a blend of both things. There are some fundamental skills that we do need to ensure that our learners have available to them.
Yeah,
So the foundation blocks of being able to work in an industry 4.0 with digital technology, and then how we use AI
yeah,
as our assistant, as our work buddy, so to speak.
yeah,
Those skills are really important. When AI first was launched in 2022 in education, everybody went, "Oh God, everybody's going to cheat."
yeah,
Everybody was, if you wanted to cheat, you could cheat,
yeah,
right? Somebody could write your essay for you. You could use Wikipedia. You could do whatever.
yeah.
Um,
These it's been
that
around a
is,
long time
yes,
for.
absolutely. Dare I say it, I remember drawing my daughter's spatula for her homework. But art wasn't the thing that she was going to go on and do, and it didn't really matter. But um, you know, the tools that we need to impart and the skills that we need to impart, how to use those tools
Yeah.
really effectively.
Yeah, I think creativity is one of those things that you it's not so much that we need to encourage people to be creative when they don't want to be, or perhaps they can't be, but I do think that the inquisitiveness that is the sort of predecessor to creativity is something that actually that learners, no matter what age they are, will need way more than they ever thought.
It's maintaining the ability to question the
Are you-
why.
Yeah, I'm a massive fan of Sir Ken Robinson, who's the educationalist who's no longer with us. His TED Talk on YouTube is still one of the most widely viewed TED Talks there is on YouTube. It was initially filmed. The one of talks was around do schools kill creativity, and that was released I think in 2006 or filmed then anyway. So it's out 18 years old. I think it's had 23 million views and over 12,000 comments on that one YouTube video alone for his TED Talk. I'm a big fan of his work and understanding the importance of creativity in the education process. He argued in that TED Talk that and his subsequent books um, that the school system that was there before didn't really value creativity and didn't value the creative processes. And he challenged us by thinking about the ways in which learners learn, which is multifaceted.
It is.
The rigidity of a classical sort of school system didn't necessarily respond to that. Um, and so, yeah. So, what's your take on how I guess AI can help us become more creative? Do you subscribe to that view?
I do. This is why we're developing the tools that we are developing. I think AI for me
Yeah.
in the role that we perform for Activate Learning enables us to be that creator, and to encourage creativity. So it's role modeling. If you are demonstrating that you can use these tools in a creative and ethical way, and coach and support learners, then they can engage with those tools in a very creative way too and think about how they're using them. And an example of that is when we had our initial pilot for our GCSE English tutor.
Hmm.
Uh, one young lad that I spoke to um, said that he was really struggling with his engineering assignment, couldn't phrase it, really struggled. So because his teacher had encouraged him to use the AI tutor to develop his English writing,
Yeah.
he thought, "Oh, I'm going to jump onto that course, upload my assignment, and get some feedback."
Yeah.
And ultimately, he improved his writing and got a better mark.
Yeah.
So it's about the creativity around using the tools that are available to you to enhance what you want to achieve.
Yeah. I think you touched on inclusivity
Yes,
and the importance of AI and digital in helping us all include everyone in this
yes,
education process. There's lots of different subjects that we can talk on. Um, could we uh, So you mentioned English perhaps not being a prime language, I believe, and so or students who are struggling with English. Um, how can you see? Let's touch on that subject of AI helping sort of literacy and sort of overcoming folks who might not have high literacy rates. Is that something that you can see AI helping?
absolutely. Absolutely. So I can see AI helping learners that come to the college that have English as a second language.
Yeah,
So we can use AI to support that instant translation.
yeah,
Um, use methodologies within the classroom where a teacher can put subtitles through PowerPoint Live on a screen. Students can use their smartphones,
yeah.
scan a QR code, and then see those subtitles in their own native language.
Wow.
Every learner then has their own unique ability
Yeah,
to um, to read those subtitles in their own language.
yeah,
So you could be learning Arabic. You could have a different Arabic dialect in the person next door to you.
yeah,
For a teacher to have that ability to access those learners and support them in that way is really huge, but only possible through AI
Yeah.
because of the injection of the tools, through developing the language, that individual personalized experience from one learner to the next.
Yeah.
They all write differently.
Yeah.
In a classroom setting, you're encouraged to write a specific way.
Yeah.
But to have AI there, you're learning in your own way. You're on your individualized learning experience supported by these AI tools.
It's amazing, and I mean, it just kind of almost boggles the mind about how the classroom will change in the future. Really, doesn't it? Let's, if you don't mind me, we talked earlier about the fact that you posted a few weeks ago
Yes.
that you are, as a grandmother, you said, to a preteen young man who has been diagnosed with autism, inattentive ADHD, and dyslexia, who is yet to get his, and you'll have to help me with this, is EHCP.
Is educational healthcare plan.
Okay, and that's from the
Uh,
local authority.
Local authority.
Okay. The quality of his experience is so important, and yet he feels isolated and experiences neurotypical teaching, a lack of understanding and support in mainstream education. Inclusion cannot be a buzzword, and school leadership must be accountable for the behaviors of their staff and school culture. Some schools practice inclusion so well, and some do not. And you said, because this is in reference to the news that Ofsted was going to develop plans to inspect inclusion as part of their inspection process. Um, what's it like for your grandson in terms of, you know, that journey? Where do you think the school system needs to change to become better for kids like your grandson?
Oh, very emotive topic, um, and one that I wholeheartedly speak openly about. Inclusion is hugely important. Inspecting inclusion is a massive step forward. Government needs to take seriously that we have an ever increasing need for our school communities where mental health issues, low anxiety, associated with or not to diagnose conditions needs to be supported better. That has to come through the training of teachers.
Sure.
That has to come through training of our leadership. They need to invoke that inclusive culture. I can give a story, an experience that my grandson had. So, being autistic, he finds it very difficult to make friends.
Yeah.
He's moved into secondary from a very, very cosseted primary experience,
Right.
where you have one teacher, you're in one classroom.
Sure.
In secondary, you have multiple teachers, you're moving around the school in different classrooms. Orientation for learners is really important when they have an additional need. His didn't provide that opportunity. He met his teacher, but it wasn't, the follow-up wasn't great. When he has one friend, and one lunchtime, and it sort of crushed me. His friend wasn't in, he didn't have other friends.
Right.
So he spent his lunchtime facing a wall because the school noise was too loud for him.
Wow.
He was in a corridor and he ate his lunch facing a corridor,
Goodness me.
facing the wall.
And no one was there to help him.
And no, no,
Wow.
no. And I know secondary schools are quite big,
Sure.
and they're sort of a bustling community. But there are some schools that they really promote inclusion with their students.
Yeah.
And so everybody is aware of young people that might have a difference.
Yeah.
And they encourage that social empathy.
Yeah.
And my grandson didn't experience that day. And that's an awful thing to come home and feel so isolated.
Yeah.
I'd like to say that his experiences have improved. They have slightly. He does now have ATA for 3 days a week.
A
But
teaching assistant.
a teaching
Yeah.
assistant on
Yeah.
3 days a week. But he doesn't have that for the rest of the week.
Sure.
So what happens then?
Yeah.
He has to he moves from between different classrooms, and then on every other day he's at a different site.
Yeah.
So for an autistic young person
Hmm.
who's got ADHD and dyslexia, that's a big thing.
Yeah.
That's a huge, that daily change, that daily challenge to get up and get out of the house in the morning
Yeah.
is a massive thing.
Yeah.
And my daughter does so well
Yeah.
in ensuring that he gets to school, often late. He does have emotional based school avoidance, and we're working on that.
Okay.
But then when we think about his emotions when he's in school, he struggles to articulate that,
Yeah.
but he knows it's not a safe place for him.
Yeah.
He doesn't feel safe.
Of course.
How do the school leadership make them feel safe? So the government initiative to inspect inclusion needs to do that really well. It needs to speak to the parents, and it needs to be not just an inspection of the school, it's an inspection of that learner's experience
Absolutely.
and focus on SEND children.
And I've got to confess, I don't know exactly when the outcome
No, I
of
don't
that
know.
is. You
Yeah.
don't know.
No, I don't know.
Yeah. That's a really challenging subject. Yeah, and thank you so much for sharing that, by the way. That's a really, it's good of you, and I think it's really important to have these kind of examples be highlighted, because if they're not, then actually they don't get the light of day
Nothing changes.
and nothing changes.
No.
Exactly. So thank you very much for that. Are you encouraged, given what you do in your day job, are you encouraged that technology and AI perhaps will help your grandson's kind of journey in terms of learning going into secondary school?
Yes. I do think that it will help him.
Mm.
I think teachers need to learn how to use the tools effectively to impart those skills onto the learners. I mean, my grandson will access Copilot now, and
Yeah.
he'll question Copilot, but does he do that in a safe way? One can't be sure.
Yeah.
We need to make sure that safety is paramount and at the forefront. If they're being asked to use tools as part of their education, that's our responsibility.
And given your experience in the further education world, what's your advice to the large swathes of secondary schools? Like, where should this sit? This subject of making sure that the correct AI tools are provided to young kids.
I think the government has a responsibility
Mm.
through the DFE has that responsibility. They are at the moment tendering for AI in education teacher and leadership toolkits.
Yeah.
So that's something that I'm aware of. That it's there's a bid, an envelope for that, for people to bid to develop those training materials.
Yeah.
I think that we have to look at our teacher training programs
Mhm.
as well,
Mhm.
and make sure that that's injected into there. That these tools are not added extras now. It's not something extra to learn.
Yeah.
They're going to become a way of life.
Absolutely.
So let's
In the
not
way that I
separate
calculated it.
Yeah.
I speak quite publicly about the
Mm.
tools that were been
Yeah.
around for spell checkers and calculators and word processors and spreadsheets that we all now are quite comfortable with, and could have been argued at one point as been sort of seen to be cheating, as you say. But now we just see them as simply tools to actually empower us, and actually help us find the answer or the solution to something much more.
Absolutely. And we've moved on, haven't we? Because Excel is the new scientific calculator.
It really is. It really
And it
is.
contains everything that you need. So
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. How I mean, are you optimistic that the Department for Education here in the UK will actually, solve this problem in the next year or two?
I don't think a year or two. I don't know. To be fair, personally, I think so long as they're listening
Yeah.
to the Association of Colleges, to the head teachers,
Yeah.
the community, the communities that they serve, then yes, I'm hopeful, providing they're listening.
You and I have, obviously, we both work in AI, and we've done that
Yeah.
for number of years, and or have been aware of its potential for a number of years for sure. I think one of the worries that I've got is that actually the market will just accelerate massively beyond the capabilities of the public sector, be it Department for Education or whatever it is, and that the governments will probably struggle to kind of keep pace with the technologies themselves. What's your view on that?
Well, I think yes. I think we struggle to keep pace in education. To be fair,
Yeah,
AI came along, and our our awarding bodies are yet to state how AI is going to be
yeah,
referenced within the learning of young people. And so we are very much defining what that learning experience is going to be and how best to use the tools. Um, so I think we sort of really need to sit up and pay attention.
yeah. And I guess that's why I'm kind of hopeful that actually we need to have a solution in the next year or two, because I think if we don't, then I think that actually kids of all ages, or learners of all ages, we're just going to default to uh, a, a a a sort of a well-known,
Yes.
large language model in the market, be it
Yeah.
ChatGPT or
Yeah.
Claude from Anthropic or wherever. You're just going to default to a certain model that's in the private sector,
Yes.
and not have those guardrails up from an education standpoint.
I think it's for Activate Learning. We are creating our guardrails
Yeah,
around that. We are setting an expectation with regards to plagiarism, for instance,
yeah,
that we are expecting our teachers to assess slightly differently.
hmm,
I mean, the endpoint exam is what the endpoint exam is going to be, but have it injecting those additional checks and measures
yeah,
to make sure that the learning is actually taking place is really important. We encourage the use of AI
yeah,
because it can deepen your understanding, but it's about how we measure that knowledge acquisition,
yeah,
and that's our responsibility to ensure that we do that.
yeah. Excellent. Um, let's go fix something, shall we? All right, let's go fix something. Let's give us a problem that you experience either in education or outside the education market that you would love to solve with AI or technology today.
Oh, I wasn't expecting that. A problem that I'd like to solve. I think the turnover of staff in education,
Yeah.
there is a deficit of teachers. The
Okay.
government are asking for the promoting for more teachers all the time. Um,
How can technology overcome that deficit?
I think it can lighten the load. You can't remove the human being in the room,
Sure.
but I think we need to use technology well in order to support the teacher.
Yeah.
In colleges, um, we deliver vocational studies,
Hmm.
and so we often have experts that come in from the field and deliver their expertise. But they then are on their own journey because they have to learn how to teach and
Yeah.
to do all of those things. I think if we can use technology to lighten the administrative load,
Hmm.
then I think that will help
Yeah.
tremendously.
What about outside of education? Let's say, just on a personal level, let's talk about an area where you've kind of experienced frustration, shall
Yeah,
we say, in using a public service,
yeah.
and you thought to yourself, with your Activate Learning hat on and your knowledge and your team's experience, you know, gosh, I really wish I could have solved that problem that I've just encountered. Can you think of an example maybe where you had a frustration in the last year or so with a public service?
Oh, yes, yes. So I'll go back from a personal level without my Activate Learning head on. Um, when my grandson was identified as potentially having um, autism, we had to fill out lots of forms, and these forms were checkbox.
Hmm.
And that had to be submitted to somebody to analyze, and then for him to be put on a pathway,
Right.
um, which had a waiting list, um, in order for him then to be reassessed. if we could use technology to make that a speedier process,
Yeah.
um, and then that would be so much easier.
Yeah.
A 5-year waiting list for somebody is way too long
Especially at
at,
that age,
at a
right?
formative time in their
Yeah.
life,
Yeah.
when they're in the midst of education and they need the support now, not in 5 years' time.
Yeah.
And then you have to go through an assessment process. So if there was a way
Mm.
that we could automate some of these things, and be more accepting
Mhm.
of the information that's being provided, I think that would be helpful.
Brilliant. Yeah, very, very good. We've kind of touched a little bit on this already, but how do you think the education system fails students today?
How do I think it fails students today? I think it fails certain areas of students today from a funding perspective,
Okay.
with the desperate need to balance the books,
Mm-hmm.
and to be viable. Schools, colleges have to critically appraise what service can they provide,
Yeah.
and to balance the books. Often there's they look at the biggest expense, which is staff,
Yeah.
and have to rethink the staff that they have. And often that's in the support areas.
Right.
So, and you see the attainment and the success of the students in these um, pupil premium areas, SEND areas, are often a lot lower and not comparative with their peers.
Right.
So why is that? Well,
Yeah.
because you've had to remove the staff that were supporting these students.
Mm.
So stop expecting the schools to have to balance the books in order to
Meet that need, I guess.
meet that need. Yeah,
Yeah.
let's give them the ability to support every student in the way that they should. It goes back to the inclusion,
Yeah.
and it goes back to the SEND provision.
Yeah.
The government have said that they want to look at SEND. They had an answer in the manifesto, but now that's gone out to consultation. So if you had an answer,
And talk us through that. What was in the manifesto?
well, they recognise that through the education department recognised that, I might not be allowed to say this, but this is my personal understanding of it, is that SEND is an area that needs support, that needs to be rethought and developed. And there was a promise in the manifesto that we were going to look at this.
Yeah.
But like they did with the NHS,
Mm.
that's now gone to a consultation process.
Yeah.
So we're spending money on a consultation process where money could be spent
Yeah.
fixing a problem.
Yeah.
But I don't understand why we go through those processes, because surely if they'd identified the issues, let's get on with it.
Yeah.
I'm a doer, not a talker.
Yeah.
In that sense, let's get on and fix the problems.
And
Stop talking about it.
And speaking of doing, what would you do from a technology standpoint? What would you do on this particular subject?
From a technology standpoint, I would be making available technologies. If we want our learners to learn in a more inclusive way, we want to meet the needs of the learners, then there needs to be funding available for the schools that know their learners,
Yeah.
that have that knowledge already to apply for and get.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to be able to tap into a central resource and not have to bid for public funding constantly in order to support the needs of learners.
Brilliant. One final question for you, Kim, which is, what's your hope? What's your hope for the future of education in particular?
Personally, I hope to continue doing all the things that I'm doing and more. I feel very purposeful. I'm very passionate about student inclusion and using the tools available to us to enable young people today to reach their potential. That's their basic right, to be able to reach their potential, and in all areas of contact that learner has we should be striving to do that. That's my personal aspiration. And I would love to see that on a national and global level, that every young learner can have the opportunities of equity and parity, and they can be the best that they can be.
Kim Blanchard, thank you so much for joining us here on Think Tank. Thank you so much.
Thank you for
Really
having
nice to
me.
see you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.